Hi friends, this is Emma Reddy. Today we will see how HTTP client connector can be used uh, to, to consume the REST web services which is enabled on HTTPS. Okay, let's quickly share the screen. So I just went to Google. Okay, I just took one of the public web services available. So service is available as a public. So I just navigate to this website and I do see there is a web service over here. I just clicked on this one. So when I click on this one, it just opens over here. So you can see this is the response we're getting. So the reason why, because we are getting like this is I do have a JSON plugin has been installed. Chrome add-on has been installed. That's why you're seeing this one. But if you want to see as a plain one, you can just see the text one here. Okay, but you can this advantage of this add-on, right? So you can do some kind of filtering the way how you do the filtering in Excel. So similarly, you can write some conditions and you can see this will help you to look at the understand your data. If you have a huge data, not able to go through the complete data and you want to look for specific things, whether it is available or not. But this will definitely give better beautify the sample JSON, and it will be easily identify your data structure. Okay, so now let's move on this one. Now first, before we directly jump onto the Boomi, right? So first I'll see how this web service is working in Postman. Okay, so as you know, like Postman is the tool widely used by the developers and in real time as well as for testing purpose. Like this is a very good REST API tool, and this will help you to quickly test the APIs, and you can create your collections and share it with other ones, or else you can create one workspace with your Google, with your Office workspace, and you can share it with the entire Office workspace. Okay, now, so if you want to see how this request is going in a console mode or something, you just click on this code, these Angular brackets, and it will show you like what were the parameters you sent and all these things you'll be able to see. And sometimes this will give you good insight, like what in case of headers, authentication, something you're passing. Okay, for the simplicity, this API does not accept any of the parameters. Okay, it just a plain get call, and this API does not expect any authentication also. It's kind of publicly accessible without any authentication. Now you can see I'm getting 200 and you can see this one. Okay, now let's see how we can use this in Boomi. I think this is not very typical topic, but no, just wanted to show you how we can do it in Boomi. This will be really helpful for the new Boomi learners. Okay, so I just logged in into Boomi. I'm just going to create one folder. So I'm just going to create HTTP client connector. I just created one folder. Under that, I'm going to create one process. So just click on the process. So just name it the any of the one. So you just put it consume REST web service. Okay, so you can also access this and try on your end. So now I need to use in HTTP client connector. Okay, this HTTP client connector is used to consume any SOAP or REST-based web services. But if you have any WSDL and you want to consume those web services, what you can do is you can use web services SOAP client connector as well. So this, as for any other connector, it has two types, two actions, get and send. So typically get is used when you want to get anything. Means typically when you will be used when you want to execute any get HTTP get methods. Send you can use for any other operations, like you want to post or put or patch, whatever it is. So you can use this one. So there is direct support is not there for patch, but using some parameters by passing the query parameters, in the URL, that makes, even though you pass it as a post method, but if you pass one method, HTTP method is equal to something, put or something, it will override it. So that's the reason we have in search with HTTP, right? So you will have, you should have one more connector. Okay, I do see there is a new connector. We'll explore that one later. REST client connector. What is that? Okay. So now you can see this is a get connection, like action I will be get, and connection. I'm just going to create a new connection over here. Click on plus because I'm going to create it the first time. I'm just going to go here and I'm just keeping here. This is the host name. I'm just keeping the host name over here. Just giving some random names, and I don't need to set any authentication parameters because this web service is publicly accessible. So now we will just save and close. Now go to the operation. So basically the connection specifies like how you want to connect to the web services. Basically, in terms of web services, REST web service, typically it expected you to provide all the authentication details along with the endpoint URL. But for this case, I'm just giving the only the root host name. I'll tell you like why we are giving this one, and go to the operation. So operation tells you that what kind of object you want to play. In case if you are consuming the REST services, like what kind of resource that you want to consume, or what kind of object you want to consume. You can say this is a list of objects, as the document says. This one says a list of objects. Okay. So now the list of objects here. So for the HTTP client connector, you can just create a profiles, request profile and response profile. But typically, since it's a get, you don't need to send any parameters. So you don't need to specify anything. And response, you can specify like what is the profile format you want to send, but that is not mandatory. Okay, this of course you need to create a profile, and in order to use these profile for further shapes, in order to extract the data and map it. But for this sake of this configuration, HTTP client connector, response profile is typically not required. So because this HTTP client connector works as a generic one, even if you say none, it will still works. So you can say content type. Anyway, we don't need to pass any content type because content type is typically applicable when we are passing a request to the web services. But in this case, there is no request we are passing. So typically you can just select anything, but I'm just keeping it here. And HTTP method, you can see get, post, put, delete, but you can use, but for our case, we are just going to use a get method. Okay, follow redirect. You just keep this checkbox in case if your REST API is redirecting. And this option you need to select as a MIME if you want to read any of the, if your REST API is not giving any structural data, unstructured data is giving. For example, now you want to download a PDF file or Word document, then you can enable this checkbox. Okay, so request headers, you can just tell one more parameter here. Typically is not mandatory. Accept tells you that accept this is going to tell to the REST API service server that, okay, I'm going to expect the JSON as a response, application slash JSON. So in case of resource path, you can just give rest of the values after the host name and port number, whatever the values that you want to extend, that you can specify over here. You don't need to add the first slash because the connector automatically adds the slash. In case if you want to pass that URL as a dynamic one, you just use this is replacement variable, and this name becomes no longer value. This name becomes a dynamic document property of name, this one. But for us, in our case, it is static. Okay, now I just configured everything. Just click on OK. Now let's quickly stop. Okay, so I think we are good to run. Now let's click on test, save. Okay, now we can see this process execution is completed, and now let's see what is the response we got here. Okay, now we got the response here. We can see it is giving the JSON list of JSON objects. Typically, it is giving an array. Okay, there is a one more option that we can explore here is written HTTP errors. What does it mean basically? If you enable this checkbox, right? So it will give you the error. It will give you the error in a document. It means typically, even if the REST API got failed, even if a REST API got failed, it will not make your connector got failed. So this will be typically used for better error handling. Okay, now I just enable the checkbox. Let's see how this connector is going to behave. So I'm just going to add a notify shape to observe the couple of the document properties. Now I'll just go here. Put one is here status code. Go to metadata, dynamic document property, document property. Just select here connector. From the connector, you can just go to metadata, not connector, metadata. Select the metadata, and there you can see application status code, application status message. First select this one. Similarly, select another property. Okay, so I'm just giving to display to the log to see what values are coming here. So now you can see what is the values are coming here. So status code is coming as 200 and message is coming as a null because 200 means it's considered as a success. So what you can do, let's say in this case, I'm going to give this as, I'm just going to give this as replacement. So by default, when I enable replacement, it expects the DDP dynamic document property. It does not, since I did not specify any value, it's supposed to go null value and the endpoint URL becomes invalid and you should expect fail. Okay, now I can see this connector. Okay, it is still giving 200. Let's see why it is giving 200. Okay, now let's go to view log. Send get request. See, even though this is going as, because since I enabled dynamic document property, it does not give anything because the URL is not completely formed. But still, this API was giving on 200 status code. Let's see what is the value it is coming. Okay, but this is not giving the expected data. I'm giving expected error. But still, this one, right? It did not given any error. If you see, this is not given any error. But this, for this particular API case, it is supposed to give an error because this API, with the way how it was designed, it seems like it's not giving an error. So in case if API was giving not getting the proper response, we should not return 200. We should return something like 400 bad requests or something. So in that case, even that, if that is the case, other than the 200 also, by default, if you don't enable the HTTP return HTTP, what it will typically do, if you do other than 200 status code, this connector, it no fail. That's a default behavior. Means 200 means success. Other than 200, this connector get failed. So once if you want to have a better error handling, what you can do, let the error return, even though it's error out, let the error return so that you can capture that error and throw that error in a proper better handling. So in that case, so what you can do, whatever the property that we configured, we will just verify always. This is the way how we can do the better designing. Because if you don't do this one, right? So when it happens, like when it comes, right? So if it is not expecting a proper data, then what happens is, if it is not expecting a proper data, then next, if any maps are there, those maps will be get failed. Okay. So that's why we have to properly verify if the data is coming properly or not. So when the data will come, then the proper status code is coming. So we just need to see if the document property is coming as, if status code is coming as 200. So you can also put a regex expression, anything, you can just put 200 and then star also, because in that case, we need to put wildcard. So it means it matches some of the APIs, it gives 201 status code. Now let me remove this. So in case you can log it and you can throw an exception here. This is how we're supposed to design a process. So in that exception, you design all this. So in that case, you can put the status code and you can put the status message. And also we can also put additional information. You can put the current data also. So you can going to define all these parameters over here. So now just run it. We'll be able to see the data. Sometimes if you run into any SSL related errors, okay, sometimes if you run into any SSL related errors, what you can do, there is a handshake process happens by default when server to client to server. When I say client means here Boomi and server means the API provider. So in that case, whenever there is any exchange happens, the SSL level handshake process is getting failed. What you can do, you can enable the debugging log. So you can enable the SSL trace log. So that help you to that is going to help you to see which level is going fail, whether it is the certificate which is given by the server is not located in our SSL in a trust store or not. So that you can verify. So what the property, what is that? Enable SSL debugging. So you can see enable debugging logging and enable tracing logging, like this. Since I already added a property, it's not visible. You can see enable SSL debugging logging. Once you add that, check this checkbox and save it and then restore it. You'll be able to see additional logging information with SSL tracing information will be enabled. Make sure this is disabled once your troubleshooting is completed, because otherwise it will generate a lot of logging and makes performance issues with the atom. That's all I just wanted to show you. I hope this will help you. Thank you for watching this video. In case if you have any doubts, please write comments and I'll respond. Thank you.